So welcome back to another episode, and this is one that I was thinking about this morning. I was thinking about my past and thinking up to now about my family and video games and how that's been for me over the years and how it's been for them. I'm going to ask you guys, is your parents into video gaming? Do they support the hobby? Please leave a comment down below. So for me, it was very interesting. My parents weren't into science fiction movies. They weren't into anything really like that. My dad took me to see movies and he liked it, but that was it. He never really talked about it again. So when video games came out in the the 70s or early 80s, I got an Atari 2600, and it was just something we kind of did, but we didn't really play it. It was more for me, and I think they bought it for me, and I didn't really get into it too much. It wasn't until the NES when video gaming really began for me. My parents would always sit there and just watch me play and make comments, but they were never really into it. I think they just thought as a pastime, which it is. It is a pastime. But for me, it was a little bit more than a pastime. It was a bit of a hobby. It was a bit of an obsession. It was really something that I kind of needed in my life at the time. Even to today, I still enjoy video games exactly the same way, if not even more. It's funny, but it's interesting going from the 80s into 90s, video gaming, the change. We went to, from 2D to 3D. And my parents always just kind of sat on the couch and always like, hey, can you get off the TV? We want to watch it. We only had one TV in the house until I was 16. I got my own TV. But they were always trying to kick me off the TV to get back to watching television, which is much more interesting than video games. But I'm not knocking them. But it was so funny. I could never really sell my parents on video games. They thought it was interesting. They thought it was something, but I never interacted with them. And this is actually a bit of a sad story in the end of the day, is that my mother never, still to this day, has ever picked up a video game controller. She'd be like, wouldn't know what to do with it. My father had an interest in racing games. I remember I got Mario Kart 64, and he was like, really, something happened. He was like, oh, this is really cool. This is a racing game. And I remember him saying to me, oh, I wish you could get a racing wheel to play this game with. And I'm like, oh, well, there isn't, unfortunately. And so this is kind of one of those memories that kind of kicks me, kind of hits me like really hard, is that one day I came home. It must have been just before dinner time. And the N64 was on. I pulled into the house and I'm like, so who's playing Mario Kart 64? And I came in. My dad was on the floor playing Mario Kart 64. But what was so funny about it was he couldn't get with the controller and how you move, your carts or anything like that. So he had his feet holding the controller and he was trying to use the analog stick as a racing wheel. He's trying to keep it stationary. He couldn't understand the idea of picking up a controller and using it that way. He'd never used a controller before, which is an interesting concept if you've never done that before. So, and it's really sad that I think my father would have developed a real love for racing games if he had lived beyond that. He passed away a little bit after that. But it's so funny that we went through this whole thing in the 80s, 90s, and my parents looking at me playing like E's and things like that, going, oh, geez, what the heck is this? I don't even think they understood what a role-playing game was. We went from all of that to my father breaking through and finding something that he kind of liked and started to play it. And I was just like, that's a memory that I always have. And Mario Kart 64 kind of hits me hard because of that fact. It really, really does. So, guys, do your parents support your video gaming? That's another thing. My parents supported my video gaming, but they were also like, okay, get out of the house, which makes sense. I'd be the same way, I think, with my kids. But hey, come on, let's go do something else. But, do your parents support you? Do they play video games themselves? It's an interesting time we live in. I think video games are a lot more accessible. Our generation grew up and we played games, so now for our kids, it's okay for them to play video games. It's totally in the norm. It's just, video games have advanced so much compared to what I used to play. It's wild. So, anyways, guys, let me know down below. Until next time.